Welcome to Demolition Success Secrets, the podcast that's changing the game for demolition businesses everywhere. Ever wondered how a wrecking ball wielding industry can leverage digital marketing to dominate their market? Well, we've got the blueprints, strategies, expert guests, and more to show you how. Stay tuned, because we're about to blast through the barriers of your business.
Alrighty, welcome everyone. This is another episode of Demolition Success Secrets. We have a treat for you today. We have John out of the Northeast. So pretty exciting. My old family stomping grounds, New York, New Jersey area. And John, tell us how you got in the business.
So I've had my business for, since 2001. I got into the business really because I just loved operating heavy equipment. I originally was a climber for a tree removal company. And then that worked into working for a municipality as the shade tree foreman. And I still had this obsession with heavy equipment. Around 2001, actually, I decided that this is it. The market was really good. I want to get into excavating and demolition work. I basically cashed in my pension and went to an auction in Florida and bought probably the worst machine at the auction you could possibly buy. I knew nothing. And that was it. I came home right around 9/11. It was around exactly the same time that I was like, okay, well, I guess we're starting a business now, to my wife at the time. And that was it, man. I kind of learned as I went. I didn't know anything other than I enjoyed running heavy equipment, and I wanted to learn the business side of it. And, a lot of things I learned the hard way, but I think it was valuable, definitely valuable to learn like that. I mean, could it have been more profitable? Yeah, you just make it work, and then and you learn as you go, and then it's been pretty much up ever since. We had a little bit of an issue in 2008 with the market downturn. That was a little crippling, but I think looking at that, I'm happy I went through that. I'm happy I experienced that, because it taught me a lot about how to run a business lean and mean,
Right. Yeah. No, those tough times, what do they say? What is it? Strong times make strong men. Hard times make strong men.
Yes.
Easy times make weak men. So I definitely get that. And was COVID or that time difficult, or was that pretty easy for you guys?
It wasn't the worst thing, because we had a job in Pennsylvania and a job in New York, and you weren't allowed to work. So that was a little frustrating. The good part is I was able to spend time home with my kids. I have 4 kids, and
cool.
We did a lot of work to the backyard, fire pit, a gym and stuff like that. So I guess in that respect, it was okay. I mean, frustrating not being able to go to work, but it's it was like that for everyone. So yeah,
let you catch your breath after working so hard since early 2000s. That's nice.
Yeah, and even regroup and say, okay, now how can we do this better? So always looking at a way to do what I'm doing a little bit better, a little bit more efficiently, and with a little more profit involved.
Yeah, you're not an old school demo guy. You have the experience of an old school demo guy, but you have the mindset of someone who wants to run a lean, effective, healthy for your client's business. Yeah. So I gotta know, what is the worst piece of equipment for demolition? It was just old and rusty, or just a bad brand, or what was it? It was not the right type of excavator.
So I didn't know a lot about heavy equipment at the time, and I really liked this. It was a Cat 325 BL, and it was a nice looking machine. Leave it at that. It wasn't maintained well. I didn't, there was a lot of issues with it. I didn't really see and couldn't spot. And to give you an example, when we got it home from Florida, it wouldn't start. And like, well, this is not a good way to go. So we ended up dumping a lot of money into it. We got it right eventually, but we kept it for a bunch of years and then unloaded it. But it was just a poorly maintained. Basically, it was at an auction for a reason. It was one of those machines like, you know what, we can't deal it anymore, send it to auction. I bought it.
Right. Yeah.
but it looked nice. Had a nice paint job,
Oh man, yeah, they put the lipstick on the pig. Okay, well, it's that whole thing of like, I did it once, I'll never do that again. Okay, so that's some good insight for our audience. Really, is the guys who are starting off, don't make that mistake. Now, what is some good equipment be it brand, be it model? Do you only buy new these days? Do you buy lightly pre-owned? Like, what can our audience kind of learn from that?
So we don't really, so certain machines will buy new, like skid steers, stuff like that. I
Right.
don't, I'll buy lightly used machines because especially with a lot of the more modern stuff with the DEF issues and stuff, they've worked it out a little bit if there's been an issue from day one. I do prefer pre-emissions machines, and
Okay.
we'll take our chances with like a say a Cat 345 CL versus a 349F, which is an emissions machine.
Hmm.
I do like Caterpillar only for the resale. Their parts are
Mm,
expensive. The link belt machines I've had a lot of luck with. We've had a few of those. We just sold one. Um, those machines are great. Great running machines, great multifunction. Um, Parts are sometimes a little hard to get, but all in all, if you really stay on top of your machines, and the demo is very hard on equipment, but if you stay on top of it and stay ahead of it, you have the least amount of problems, you know.
right. Yep.
So
It's like a good car or something like that. You don't
yeah,
want to dress it up and sell it off to the next guy, kind of like you went through. Okay, so that's fair. Do you guys use any robotic type of stuff, or really cutting
no,
edge? Okay.
no robotic stuff we don't. Most of our demo is just usually full structural demo.
Okay.
We don't get too much into like selective demo or any kind of robotic work. If we do get into it, we'll rent the stuff. We're
Okay.
not, I don't want to own that stuff. It's just too expensive and for us too, like too specific. We want stuff that
Mm,
we can use for a variety of things because we do site work as well. So
mm,
I want to be able to have a machine. Some of our machines have Trimble earthworks on them. Even though we
okay.
use them in demolition, we can move the machine to a site job and the guys can lay pipe with it the next day. So, you
Cool.
know,
All right. Well, that makes sense. Kind of
yeah.
multitask with it. Okay. What is a sweet ideal job for your company, and what are jobs that you guys avoid like the plague? Because you've been doing this for long enough. I'm sure you have.
Yeah. So I guess an ideal job would be a job where we can get the demo package and the site work at the same time. So like we just finished a big warehouse we tore down and we're doing a little site work for a new warehouse. And that's ideal for us because everyone's working then. Well, the whole crew, all the
Mm,
guys, the demo guys, the pipe work guys. And the jobs we try to avoid, I'm actually very selective who will work for. So I will not work for just any developer or builder. We'll do a little research on them. If I don't like their track record, then that's it. If we happen to be bidding on the job, we'll keep the numbers high. If we get it, it's
right.
worth the aggravation. If we don't, no worries. We'll on to the next one. And that's the one thing I have to say that I tell people that are younger and starting out is that don't just work for anyone because
Mm,
there's a lot of companies out there who make a living out of brutalizing subcontractors,
sure.
and you want to try. That's a huge pitfall you want to avoid because that will ruin your business. So that's
Right.
yeah, ideal job, full package demo site work, jobs we steer away from, shady contractors. Any kind of questionable environmental jobs where they're not really on the ball with it on their end as far as knowing what they have, understanding the reality of what it's going to cost to clean up. If
Mm,
people are hesitant about the dollar amount, then we're like, hey, well, you know what, we're out of here. This is what we do. This is what it's going to cost. And if you don't like it, there's other people out there, and that's okay. You
right. Yeah,
know.
there's guys who will lose their money on a job, and that's not you guys.
The best thing I heard advice from someone a long time ago is the sometimes the best job you got was the one you never got. So sometimes
Mm,
the one job where you think I got to get this job and we got to keep everyone working, make money, and you don't get it, only to find out the next guy that did get it got brutalized.
right.
We did that for a big developer who I won't name. We bid a job and it came down to it was a site work job. It came down to like $100 a day difference on a day rental for a machine. And I said, listen, man, if you're going to
Wow.
complain about $100 now on a multi-million-dollar job, I said, where are we going to be 6 months from now? I said, we're good. We're going to go elsewhere. Not a big deal. No
Right.
hard
Thank
feelings. Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
That's
The
crazy.
builder, the guy that got the job after me actually went out of business.
Oh.
Yeah.
Had you been around for some time, or was it a newcomer?
They were around for a little while, but they agreed to all of the stuff that I was like, I'm not agreeing to that, and
Wow.
they got brutalized because certain companies, they have legal teams that will hold you to
Mm,
the letter of the contract,
mm.
regardless of whether it's right or wrong. So we
How
just try to stick with good people.
Yeah, that makes sense. How important is a good lawyer? Some companies obviously have them in-house when they're bigger, but in your world of demo, how important is having good external or internal legal, especially when you're, maybe a medium, smaller size demo company?
Mhm. So I think if you're really thorough with your contracts
Mhm.
and you understand what you're doing, I don't personally feel that having an in-house lawyer is worth it. If you're doing the right thing and you're working for good people, it's
Right.
not worth it. If you're taking whatever job you can get and you're not 100% certain of what you're doing, you're going to need a lawyer because
Mm,
you're going to get yourself in trouble. We've only had, out of 22 years of having this business, one legal issue where we had to go to
wow,
court with the
that's
developer to get paid.
amazing.
Yeah,
You
that
got a
was,
good track record. Oh
yeah,
my
no, I mean, like I
gosh.
said, we work for specific people,
Mm,
and like I tell people is that, listen, there's a lot of work out there, a lot. And if
oh
you
yeah.
hold to your numbers and you hold to your like code of ethics and the way you want to run your business and you don't deviate from that, you will get work. And you will always get it your way.
Mm,
Sometimes things don't go your way on the job, but that's different.
sure.
So
Can you
yeah.
give the audience kind of paint the picture? Because you sound very, very specialized on this. What is, I don't want to call it underwriting or background checking, but, and not of a particular customer or prospect, but what is that process when you guys do come across new opportunities or new potential partners or clients? How do you guys, I don't want to call it again underwriting or background check, but maybe could you give us some more details for our audience of how you guys kind of scope out the good, the bad, what to watch out for, and
So
things like that?
so a lot of it is, we'll like if we bid a job to a new contractor, like we just did, it's a bunch of houses and a couple buildings that got to come down to put a warehouse up. So GC calls us for a bid. Okay, no problem. We put the bid in. Then that's when we start looking into the company. Who are they? What projects have they done? And then try to research what contractors they use. And sometimes go as far as to call those contractors, say if it's in a different area, because you're not going to get a good opinion if you're in the same region as them. They're going to kind of lie to you a little bit. But say, hey man,
Mm,
you guys worked with these guys. What did you think? Were they okay? Did you get paid? Were there issues? And then go from there.
okay.
And we've had that where guys like, man, they're a great company, but they're 90 to 120 days to get paid. And then we're like, hey, man, that's not for us. We
Mm,
expect to do a job and we expect to get paid in a reasonable amount of time. And we try to keep it 30 days. So,
right.
that's an example.
And are companies like those usually the terms are 30 agreed to, and then they end up still stiffing you and going 120 days, even though contractually
Sure.
it's 30? Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it like that's why I said it's crucial to look at who you're going to work for. And it's
Right.
one thing if you have a lot of capital and you have a lot of money, you can ride stuff, float stuff out, and that's okay. There's a
Sure.
lot of companies where 120 days is no big deal. But if you're smaller, you're starting out, that's crucial because you
Mm,
have to pay your suppliers in a timely fashion, fuel, materials, parts. You don't want to be funding someone else's project.
right. Yeah, your payroll, you're feeding people, you're putting food
Yeah,
on the plate.
yeah.
I'm wondering, I've never asked a client of mine, and I've never asked a guest this, but in a past life, I was involved in factoring. Is factoring a thing that's in your world? Maybe you're not a part of it, but are you familiar with the financial
No,
factoring stuff? Okay.
no. Yeah,
Okay.
no.
You're not familiar, or you just don't use
No,
it?
not familiar at all with it. No,
Okay,
no.
interesting. So, just for our audience, I'd be curious if this is even a product. For some businesses, it makes sense. For some, it makes absolutely no sense. So, when I was involved in it, many moons ago, it was for logistics companies. So, effectively, a lot of trucking companies would get paid in net 60, net 90, etc.
Mm,
Sometimes 120. And what would happen was the company that I worked for, they would essentially do background checks of sorts, do credit checks on, there was the shipper and the receiver, and there was the broker. So they would check, all those parties of sorts and say, hey, they look clean. Let's pay out the trucking company literally like next day after the work was completed. Let's pay them out and we'll accept the accounts receivable. And we're going to dock. Of course, they would tell the trucking company this. This was the agreement my company, the factoring company, had with the truckers, is we're going to dock the invoice, let's say by 5%. So they're going to get 95% of their money. They're going to get it the next day rather than having to wait 90 days. And then my company, not that I own the company, I was a team member there, would take the risk and also wait the time to collect the balance or the full payment of the invoice. I wonder, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that. Maybe we'll get a guest who offers that, because
that would
I've heard
actually
it
be,
time and
I'd be
time again.
interested to learn about that. That's pretty cool. I mean, I've heard about it in the past, but we've never, to me, it's like, if I have to do that, that's 5%, right? So it's
Yeah,
one
it's
thing if
not
you're,
worth it for you.
yeah, for me, it's not
It's
really
not.
worth it. And I think with our track record and the people we worked for that will pay in a timely fashion, I'm thankful for that,
Oh
but I
yeah.
could see how that would be very handy on some jobs.
Yeah, you get in a bind, maybe you use it occasionally. I mean, that's what we would see is sometimes those trucking companies would use it purely on occasion. Hey, there's this one broker, they always pay us in 90 days. It's kind of unacceptable where, we really want to be 30 days or 60 days at the most. Our other brokers are fine. They all do that. But the 90-day guy, their jobs are really good, just takes 3 months to get paid. So they would do it selectively. That's interesting. Something to look into.
Yeah.
What about we don't need to go into numbers. You're more than welcome to. What about your most exciting jobs? Any, maybe one or two or something like that you were like, boy, this was a really, really cool or really lucrative job out of all the stuff you guys have done? Does anything come to mind?
Any, yeah, definitely without a doubt, any insurance job. So we work with a nationwide company that handles insurance claims. And now there's insurance jobs, and then there's the insurance jobs that we get. There's an insurance job where you get called to go, the house burns up, you take it down, and then you got to wait to get paid, whatever. We work directly with the insurance company through a like a intermediate company who manages the claim. So what happens is we can go in, and this worked out in a job in Pennsylvania. It was a large retirement building, like 55 and over. It was in the shape of an H, and they had a fire in the basement on the one wing. So it was five or six stories, and the main beam in the basement melted, and it sucked all the floors in. So each unit of the complex was separated by an air gap, right? So you have a 2-inch air gap with sheetrock on either side. So it was effectively separate from the rest of the complex, but it had to come down. So that job was awesome because not only was it just a fun job to do, I mean, they had just finished putting the roof on, so there was nothing inside the building. It was empty.
Wow. That's
And it had to
brutal.
come down. So we got that job, but then the GC was like, we're not stopping the rest of the job. So you have to take the building down, dust free, no damage to the existing structure next door, which was 2 inches away, and it was, I think, 110 feet tall. And they're going to be people working on the other side of this 2-inch air gap on the sheetrock wall. So you have to be mindful of that. And it was, but with the way that whole thing is set up for us through that intermediate company, we set up our own pay schedule, and the job had to be done in 5 weeks. So and they're like, okay, well, when you're done, send an invoice in. They said, that's not the way it's going to work. I said, you're going to pay us every 2 weeks. There's going to be a draw, and we're going to stay ahead. So we actually never had to lay out a penny. And we ended up being there for 2 months because we did additional work. But that was one of the coolest jobs I've done, without a doubt.
That is crazy.
Yeah, that was
they
fun.
just
So
put on
the
a new
insurance jobs
roof.
for us are great. So
What had caused that issue?
So they had all of the shower bases, which are a petroleum-based product, the shower inserts, stacked up in pallets in the basement. From what we understand, because I do like get involved with the insurance company as far as trying to figure out why. So what we understand is that the electricians moved a heater in the basement, and they moved it a little
Mm,
too close to some pallets, and eventually it ignited the pallets, and the flames were so intense because all the materials were stockpiled in the basement of the building, which was basically a parking garage, that the heat was so intense it melted the main column of the building. And
jeez.
that was like, I think, a 18-inch H beam, with
Okay.
like 1 inch webbing. It
Wow.
was heavy. So yeah, so that, and then it sucked all the floors in as it sank, and the whole wing had to come down.
Were residents in the building?
No, it was still
Okay.
the whole
Okay.
place was still under construction, and it was,
Okay. Good.
yeah, 2 months from being open. So they were
Oh.
like, you have to be done in five, and I think we had 4 or 5 weeks to get it done. And it ended up being
Wow.
longer because then we got down to the foundation. I said, the foundation's got to come out. I'm like, what do you mean? I go, it's
Oh.
fire damage. The metal got so hot, the rebar, that it pops the concrete. And I said,
Hmm.
you can't just surface that and turn this over as a new building. And of course, I'm in the meeting with the insurance, the owners, the GC, somewhere out of Chicago. Some of the owners were from California, and they're like, you know what? He's right. It's got to be a new building. So
Mm,
then, bang, we got that change order for that too. So that was kind of nice. Yeah.
wow. So you guys tore up the concrete, and then did you manage the like repouring and the rebar and everything
No,
after it was torn up?
we had to get it ready for new construction. So we actually
Okay.
ripped everything out and then we basically cut the slab or cut the grade to bottom of footing elevation, and then they took over. So that was
Okay.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Fascinating. That's crazy. Okay. Any crazy skyscrapers or sports arenas or any,
No,
monster things
no,
like that?
nothing really huge. We're like in the middle of the playing field with stuff like that. That was one of our largest jobs. We've done stuff like a grocery store roof collapse with a liquor store in it.
Whew.
So that had to be guarded by the police 24/7 until we got it all cleaned up because they didn't want people coming and stealing the liquor. That was a
Mm.
pretty cool job. But stuff like that, nothing. Yeah, maybe one day a high rise or a
Well, and there's a
skyscraper.
lot of risk too. Like I hear
Yeah.
kind of your risk tolerance where you're like, hey, we want clean, sure money. We're going to take
Mhm.
care of our customers. We're going to get our margin. We're not going to be too greedy. But like, perhaps maybe those things they seem cool, but they could be a trap.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong on that, but interesting, interesting, interesting. So this is a fun little question. Any things that you wish you could tell yourself? Obviously, you learned a lot. You want to learn through experience in certain cases, but are there like two or three things you would tell yourself from your perspective now relative to when you were starting the business, other than don't buy that first piece of equipment? Um,
Yeah. I would probably say, and I learned it in 2008 when the market crashes, you need to learn to run lean, right? So like you don't need to show up, say like you're going to tear a house down with 3 laborers, no,
mm,
you just send the operator and you tell them don't be a slob, do a nice neat job. And if you make a mess, you're cleaning it up. I'm a little
mm,
bit like, a little, very strict like that with the guys. Like you have to be neat. That is extremely important. We don't mix materials, we do everything neat, but I would say running with less labor. We don't actually have a lot of laborers. What we have is guys who are really they have the desire to get the job done and get it done right, and they're willing to get off the machine if something has to be done. And that's not
okay.
something that's common in the field. A lot of times it's like, oh, I need laborers, and if you're neat enough, you don't need a lot of laborers. You need one, maybe two. If
Mm,
you're messy, yes,
interesting.
you need, 3 or 4. But that's one thing I would tell myself, go easy. Because I remember before 2008, we'd send 5, 6 laborers to a job, which is insane if you think
Wow.
about it.
What a
Because
difference.
you're paying all
Huh.
that payroll now. We just, to give you an example,
Right.
we just did the building we just took down, not a big building, but one laborer who can operate the Bobcat too. So there was no one else there but 2 operators and then Bobcat operator who was also a laborer. So if you can eliminate some of your overhead like that, labor is one of your biggest issues because it's constant. It's like machine
Right.
payments. I mean, every week you got to make that payroll. So if you can, that's why we got into the Trimble Earthworks with the site work, because it eliminates labor, and
Mm.
that's a huge number.
Would you tell the newer guys or maybe middle-sized companies. So, hey guys, it is worth the experienced team members. It is worth the guys who maybe want a little bit more pay. Do it that way, and ironically, it is more lean than you trying to play it cheap with each person's pay, but you have to have 5 people on site.
Yeah, 100%. Like, so we pay our guys well. So
Sure.
you look at it like this, like you can have, you can nickel and dime yourself with operators and laborers and try to get away with the least amount as you possibly can. But in turn, they're going to nickel and dime you. So you
Mm,
can find good people, pay them well to do the job, and you're more likely to get better results and more productivity out of them. A happy employee is going to do more work than a cranky, miserable employee that feels like he's being mistreated, you
sure.
know. So like in our area, I'll pay my guys on the average of $5 to $10 more an hour. I expect more out of you, but they're also happy because they're going home every Friday with a bigger paycheck. And
Right. Yeah, and they
I'm
feel
getting the
appreciated.
they do. They feel appreciated. They're willing to look after your stuff more. You don't have to worry as much as when you get a guy and you're like, hey man, the guy asked for, say, let's just say $30 an hour. Well, I can start you at 20, right? That's great for you, but is it really worth it?
Mm,
You have millions of dollars in equipment. So is it worth it to shortchange yourself and cheap out on employees? I don't think so. I think
right.
you find good guys, you pay them good money, and you make them part of a team. You're not just an employee. Like, hey, man, like I say to my, I just had a talk with all my guys because a guy that had left had complained that John's out bidding another job and we're going to be overwhelmed. And I'm like, listen, the whole idea is that we're overwhelmed because then we're always
Mm,
working. Because not only is it my job to make sure that I'm making my payments and I'm covering my expenses, it's my job to make sure that you have somewhere to go every day. I feel obligated to make sure that I'm providing you with a future, not just
right.
a job for now. Somewhere where you can stay and grow and develop and help the company grow too, because one works with the other.
Right.
So,
Yeah. When you grow, they grow. When they grow, you grow.
yeah,
It's really one
100%.
hand washes the other. So let me ask you on that because it's such a theme on the podcast that we hear is there's companies, and I know that that's not you. You guys, you get it, but there's companies out there that we hear so many times they're literally taking jobs just to keep their guys busy. Um, in my business, we work with a lot of demolition companies, and our whole thing is to allow them to have so many opportunities they could cherry pick deals.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, our guys are getting a ridiculous number of deals every single month, and they have so much flow that they can pick and choose. Kind of sounds the same as you guys. What is that? Like, I'm sure you've seen companies come and go because they're not picky. They're literally like, please, I'll take anything just to keep my guys fed or just
Yeah.
to
So
keep them on the under the impression that they're being fed.
doing
And then
that
the
is
next year
that,
they're out of business.
well, that's what happens because what happens is if you don't allow for, you have to make money. First and foremost, you have to be profitable. If you aren't, and you can say, well, this just this one job. Well, one job leads to another and another and another. And next thing you know, you're working cheap all the time. You can't afford your overhead and you go under it. It's that simple. But and then as I have a friend of mine that is just starting out and he gets railroaded by developers all the time, small companies who's working for house builders and stuff. And oh, they want to only pay me this. I said, dude, unless you stick to your numbers, because
Mm,
you don't take a job to keep your guys busy. That's like a death sentence. It's gonna catch up to you at a certain point because you're gonna do it once and then you're gonna do it again and again and again. And next thing you know, I can't make my payments, everything is due, but the guys are busy and that's not helping you because now you can't give them a job. Your company went out of business, you know.
mm,
So it's like a little bit of a fatal funnel there where you're just gonna slowly drown, and then on the other end of it, you have to go after as much work as you can,
right.
because you're only really, what is it, statistically getting 10% of the stuff you bid. So if you bid 10
Okay.
jobs, what are you going to get? One or two?
You can get one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if
How
you
do you
bid a
guys
bunch of
do
them
that?
high, it's not bad, right? So if you bid a bunch of
Hmm.
jobs and you're comfortable with the number, you bid a lot of them and you get one or two, that's great. Because now you're not
Yeah.
just taking a job, but you got to put your work in. It's a lot of
Right.
work.
And is that networking, like what is your superpower for you guys to get those opportunities? I assume networking, your experience, your relationships with GCs, insurance. Is there like two or three things that you say, hey, these are our main pipelines that keep us really busy and we can be selective because we have so many opportunities?
I think reputation, quality of work,
Hmm.
honest, being an honest contractor. There's a lot of shady guys out there. I
Oh
see
yeah.
we've done site work on jobs where demo guys have worked before, and we've pulled out hundreds of loads of concrete because someone didn't take it out. Do the right thing, be honest, and do quality work, and it will come back to you tenfold because I don't actually advertise. We don't
Okay.
advertise. I'll go out and look for new clients sometimes, but
Hmm.
most of my work is word of mouth and repeat. We actually, the job we got on, the demo job, I think we were the same price as the other guy, but the architect that was managing the job was like, this is the company you want to use. You know, they're
Cool.
going to come in, they're going to do quality work. You don't have to babysit them. They'll tackle everything that needs to be done in a professional manner, and that's the way you get repeat work, you know.
Yeah. No, it's so
And
true. We
you're gonna have times where you're gonna be doing something you don't want to do, where you're like,
mm,
Jesus, man, why did I take this job? You got to tough it out, man. And you got to do the right job for people. And then because people remember that when you don't do well, you know.
mm. That's interesting. Yeah, I'd love to see the average life of a demolition business. That's something maybe we have to bring in like a nerd, a statistician, or some sort of PhD to tell us like these are all the facts. I would bet it's not that long. I mean, you
I
guys,
From what I've
you've
heard,
seen a lot come and go.
yeah, from what I've heard, talking to someone that runs a very large company in New England, that it's around a 10-year lifespan for
Okay.
large companies.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
I think part of that has to do with you create this monster you have to feed all the time, and it gets out of control, and then you get swallowed up by the cost if things don't go well. I mean, and being
Mm,
diversifying is huge too. You can't just do demo. Well, you can, but it's very hard to just do demo and then sustain everything. If you can do
right.
more, like we do site work too, it's a huge advantage for us because the GC is calling one company, not two,
Yep.
and then we handle everything. Like we'll tell them, listen, we'll include everything down to sweeping your parking lot when you're ready for the people to take over the building, from demo to that. You don't have to do anything. We handle it all, and that's huge for people because it's one less headache they got to deal with, you
Oh
know.
yeah. No, it makes sense. They don't have to connect any more dots. They don't have to hope that you're reliable for a referral of a buddy who knows someone or what have
Yeah.
you. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, well, we're gonna wrap up in just a few minutes here, but
Sure.
any other wisdoms that you have? Anything that you feel? Obviously, we're filling a void here in the demolition industry. You guys
Mm.
don't have many forums to talk and to learn and to teach. Yes, there's of course the association. Yes, there's some Facebook groups, but any other last little nuggets of gold or things that you wish you knew when you started that you could kind of share with our audience?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is something I learned, I would probably say in the last like 5 years of having my business, which is crazy when you think about it, but it's been helping, is that never be afraid to ask someone for advice, help, or anything. Always ask because and listen, always ask, like, become friendly with people that work at larger companies because they're large for a reason, and especially large reputable companies. And you can learn a lot from a very simple 5-minute conversation on the phone, stopping and talking to a site supervisor. Most people like us right now are happy to tell you the good and the bad about it. And hey, this
Mm,
is how you can be better. They're happy to tell you that. Professional, experienced, successful people are happy to pass that on. And don't think that because like you're doing it your way is the only way it can be done and the best way. I'm always entertaining new ideas, new ways to do things. How can we be more efficient? How can we be just a little bit faster, a little bit cleaner? And if you're 1% better every time you go out the door at the end of the year, that's huge, right?
mm,
And then ask. I have friends in the industry that work for very large companies that do 100 times more than I do a year. That I'll be
Wow.
like, hey, yeah, I'll be like, hey man, I got a friend, they do almost 160 million a year, right? In
Oh
demos.
my
Wow.
gosh.
But
Jeez.
I'll say, hey man, I got a question. What is it? How do I go about doing this to be more effective? Well, this is what you need to do. Okay, great, thank you. And then you
Mm,
take that advice and run with it. Never be too proud to ask for help. That's probably the number one thing is ask for help, man. People are happy to give it, you
oh
know.
yeah. Yeah, everyone thinks successful people or well-off people or what have you are like, a special group. They only stick with their own. The wealthy people I know, most of them, they're willing, if you approach them properly, maybe you
Yeah.
give some value before you take value, or you say, hey, legitimately, I have one question for you. I don't have a laundry list of 10 things. But yeah, they're willing to share, and they kind of see themselves in you, and they, in certain cases, wish they had the wisdom that they're going to now be able to impart on you. So
Yeah.
that's great. That's
Yeah.
super
The
powerful.
only other thing I can say is always return a phone call, no matter how ridiculous you think it is. The job, like, oh, this guy's got this little, like, you never know because that little job could turn into, and that's happened with us in the past. One little job turns into a major. The whole insurance thing that we got locked into, and we get very good money to do what we do,
Sure.
started by answering a phone call randomly one day. That I was
Crazy.
like,
How
who
did
the
they
heck is
find
this?
you?
That's how they find you, and
Huh.
then they happen upon you, and next thing you know, the relationship is great. It's been going on 20 years. We get all the good jobs. We don't get the bad ones, we get the good ones, you know.
That is cool.
So
Okay, so
yeah.
insurance works good. Do you guys do a lot of public stuff or more private?
No, the public stuff I don't. In this area is saturated. So the public stuff is not, you're not going to get really good profit out of it, and it's a lot
Sure.
of work for a little profit. I'd rather hold back a little bit and then just pursue, working with certain developers and general contractors that I know have a good reputation, you know.
Sure. How can the medium or smaller companies develop better relationships with the GCs, with the developers? Are there meetups that you go to, country clubs? Is there, dinners? Is there anything like a fast track to not have
Stop
to
by a
be in the
job.
business for years? Okay.
Stop by a
Okay.
job. And like, to give you an
Huh.
example, I'm going next week. We worked for a GC out in PA 15 plus years ago on a job that
Okay.
went south because the owners they didn't get their loan, didn't come through, whatever. It wasn't not a big deal. But
Mm.
I'm gonna go to their office, reintroduce myself, bring something. Hey, here's some mugs for the people in the office. Can I sit down and have 5 minutes of your time? And this is what
Cool.
we're all about. And that face-to-face interaction, emailing is very easy to disregard an email. We do it all the time. You look at your
Sure.
email list, you pick and choose, right? But it's when you're face-to-face, go to jobs, meet the GCs, introduce yourself. I even say I went to a guy, big corporation, and I said, "How can I do better? I want to hear from you."
Mm.
And then just listen and be willing to understand that you don't know everything. If you did, you wouldn't be in that position. So learn, man, be a sponge, get whatever info you can. And there's always another way to peel an apple, so be willing to learn. That's the most important thing.
That is cool. Okay. Well, we're about to wrap up here. I have a
So
random fun one. You could answer this or skip it, but we like to kind of ask this question from time to time. If there was a magic number that someone was going to offer you to buy the business, is that a thing, or you would never buy the business? You're gonna keep working until the day you die.
I would probably say if someone was to say, put a number in your business, I want to buy it off you, I would probably
Mhm.
say I have to sit back and then say, you know what? I would take that money and just start another one. Because I like what I'm doing,
Mm,
you know?
yeah.
Or I would say,
They're
fine,
like,
but I'm staying on.
okay,
But you're better off
gotcha.
take the money and then just reinvent yourself as another company and do it again. I think people that run businesses and like mine are you're addicted to it. It's like it's
Mm,
definitely addicting.
right. Yeah, and you've had success, so it's like, what am I gonna do? I've already played enough golf. I'm going to the pool. I'm hanging out. I'm eating well. Going on
Yeah.
vacation. That kind of thing. Like the liquidity is not going to do anything different in my life. I kind of enjoy this. It's a
Yeah.
thrill. Okay. got it. Anything for this cycle? I'll give you an example. I'm in different Facebook groups. Obviously, that's part of how we met. But I
Mhm.
look at all kinds of stuff, whether it's the auto industry and the salespeople there saying things are drying up. You mentioned '08, so that's part of why I'm asking. You're good because you guys are lean. You've lived through it. Um, what do you think the cycle? Obviously, we've inflated a lot of stuff. There's a lot of political craziness, war, this and that. What do you think in the industry? I think you guys are in a stronger industry than others with cycles and downturns.
Mhm.
You've seen it before, so what are any thoughts for the industry with what's going on currently
Um,
and soon
I,
to be
I
maybe?
Well, I think it's an election year coming up, so it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. I think you'll see a little bit of a hesitancy, but I think everyone learned from the last downturn that you can't just stop. You have to keep going. And even with the inflation going up, we're still seeing new projects start. We're
Sure.
still seeing plans come down the pipeline. A good indication is our engineers busy designing. So they're busy.
Mm,
So that's telling you that there's projects coming down the pipeline, whether or not they kick off right away. But I think people, when they have the real estate, they don't want to sit on it anymore. They want to go, because
yes.
there's a lot of money to be made out there, and I think it's going to be a little bit of a confusing year, if that's a good word,
Mhm.
but I think ultimately it's going to be okay. I think people learn from '08 that they can't just stop; they have to keep moving. You
Right.
know,
Yeah, and there's still a demand. People need a place to live, right? I mean,
yeah.
maybe commercial buildings is a little different. We got Amazon. We also with commercial, we have office spaces and a lot of work
Mhm.
from home and things like that, but not for every industry. So that's fair. I always wonder because your business stuff still needs to come down. Your insurance aspect, there's always going to be a fire,
Yep.
chaos, a problem. So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful business for that reason. That's part of why I don't work with mortgage and real estate.
Yeah.
In terms of the agents and stuff, my dad's in
Yeah.
real estate. I'm in real estate, investing wise. But yeah, my God, I had buddies who were in mortgage and they were making like $40,000 a month as commission, just the sales
Mhm.
guys, and that was maybe 2 years ago. Those guys and smart guys, more power to
Mhm.
them, but they're out of the business,
Yeah.
and they've been out of the business for a few months now. Just amazing. But your business, first off, yours, but also the industry. I think the strong, smart players really have less of a downturn, especially when they're lean the way that you guys are, than some of these other industries. So it's a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other than that, we can wrap up unless you have any
Cool.
last tidbit you want to leave the audience with.
No, I mean, like I said, just if you want to get anywhere in any business, you got to be willing to learn. You got to be open-minded. A lot of people are very closed-minded. The way I do it's the way to do it. Well, that's not always the case. And ask, man, talk to people, go out and meet people. Go to job sites. I've actually gone in friends of mine in other companies, just hang out with them for the day in their job site if I got a free day. Just to see
Cool.
how they're doing stuff, because you can learn a lot. You learn a lot from watching.
Right.
Watch
And they don't
YouTube
even
videos.
have to be in your own business. Like people, they get the
No.
weird thing, oh, it's got to be another demo company. It's like you could see the other businesses and that could shift or mean something in your world. And it's like a flip of a switch.
Yeah, a
Totally different
deli.
business.
Go see how a deli works, and then you might learn how to maybe maintain your supply line better. Anything, and just be a sponge. And just don't give up. That's it. Just keep pushing every day. You know.
Cool.
You know.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, Jonathan, thank you for the time. This has been another episode of Demolition Success Secrets, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Cool, man.
That's a wrap for this episode of Demolition Success Secrets. Stay tuned and subscribe for more explosive insights from our upcoming episodes. Until then, continue to blow up your demolition business and make the competition rubble in your path.